Hey, it's New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling, from the Spiritual Awareness Center located in beautiful Fresno, California, the heart of the Central Valley, which is the heart of California, as I say each week. We got a whole lot of heart going on here. Welcome to the show. Last week we finished up and it ended up being 7 shows long, but it was the introduction of the 4 introductory chapters to the Science of Mind, what we often call the textbook by Dr. Ernest Holmes. I enjoyed doing that. I'm thinking about in upcoming shows starting a series based on the general summary at the end of the teaching part of the textbook, and so that's something to look forward to. But in the meantime, today I'm just it's kind of a free flow of ideas and thoughts. And one of the things I thought that I'd like to start with, because in understanding the concept of unity and oneness, we often start our affirmative prayer treatments with the words, there's one God, or one life, or one mind, and that life is mine, or however we want to do that. But the idea of recognizing a oneness, a unity, and how important that initial understanding is as we move into a new thought consciousness, a practice of the philosophy of science of mind and spirit. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and maybe about receptivity, and possibly a few other things. We'll just see how much time we got today. But I want to do something here to begin with, and that is, if you happen to have a concordance of the Science of Mind book, there is the number of and the difference of use of the word one, as Dr. Holmes is talking about in the book. And I'm just going to read you some of the sentences from which these uses are. It is, because he is one with the whole. The use we are making of the one law. Man is one with God, one with the whole. All things must be one. Infinite must be one. Many live in the one. One and the same mind. The universe has to be one. From the one, within this one all live. For the two are really one. But in reality, they are one. One with everything. One substance in the universe. We must be one with the law. The teacher has known that God is one. He is one with the whole. And I could go on. You get the idea that we're talking about this concept of oneness. And as we, as we talked about in the last group of shows that we did, this idea of the divine, the thing itself as being one, a unity. The realization, the importance of that realization for us as individual spiritual journeyers, if you will, becomes apparent when we accept that as we speak our word for ourselves. We talk about the one law responding. The law, as we speak our word, the law responds. And you can go back to the last couple of lessons, and you can pick up some of that. But the idea is that if we were separate, if there was the Creator, what we call God, and the creation, what we called separateness, there's no connection other than this somewhat anthropomorphic being intervening into its creation, if you will, kind of like someone huddling over a globe, if they even make globes anymore, but the idea of, hovering over its creation. If we accept the idea of the divine, of God being infinite, in that acceptance, when we start right there at the very beginning, we have to logically eliminate certain other things that we may have accepted in the past, and that is we are separate from God, that there is God and something else that is in opposition to God, that God's creation is a construct that came out of nothing. In other words, at that point, we're accepting that there is God and then this nothing from which God created, and there can't be nothing in God. If there's nothing, there's nothing. And we have to understand the powerful impact of what it means when we address the concept of nothing, because we get intellectually lazy, if you will, if we can accept that there's God, and out of this nothing that God can create, and still we're only talking about an infinite God. It doesn't work that way. Although for many, many years, that's kind of been the acceptable theme, if you will. There's God, and there's only God. there's this infiniteness. And we talked about Ernest Holmes giving God the name of the thing itself, and how powerful that was as a concept, because we hold in our minds beliefs, and those beliefs are attached to our perceptions of reality. And most people, particularly in 1938, when the word God was mentioned, there was a construct, a definition, an idea of what God really was. But when we look at God as something beyond what was accepted at that day, what was taught in mainstream theology, or mainstream religions, if you will, the idea of God being a beingness, an infinite spirit that is everywhere present, which means there's no place, there's no space where God is not, including where we sit right here and now, and that God exists in the right here and now, and before and beyond the right here and now. Because when we speak of infinite, we can't limit infinite by an idea of space and time. Infinite is beyond space and time. And so we exist within the beingness of the divine principle. And Holmes said, let's call it the thing itself, because when we choose to call it the thing itself, or any other name that has not been commonly used in the past, what we're doing is we're shifting that idea within our mind, particularly in our subjective mind, and it makes it easier for us to realize and to accept a concept of the thing itself as being everywhere present, without having the inner conflict of beliefs that we've held for a long period of time that are, in a sense, seeking to fight for their place in our inner beingness and our inner understanding of reality. So Holmes said, okay, let's call it the thing itself, and we move on. But the thing itself, when we talk about it, we're talking about this concept of oneness. And oneness is not, I'm sorry, I can't help it. Every time I think of saying oneness, I can't think of their name. But there was a group in the 60s and 70s. One is the loneliest number, one's not the loneliest number. One is the onlyest number, if you will. And there's a unity that we're talking about when we use this word one. And so I want to go back here in the Science of Mind book, and we have this in man's relationship chapter on page 121, if you happen to have a book, under the section titled is Unity, and he says, our teaching is that man actually has a body, that he or she, he uses the male pronoun, but we know that he's referring to all of us, right? Actually has a subjective life, and actually is a spirit. So body, soul, and spirit represents a point where the individuality is accentuated in universality. In the universality, the wholeness, the unity, the oneness of all that is. It is only through this conception that we can arrive at a consciousness of unity of the whole. In other words, if we have one mind, if I have one mind, he says, and if you have one mind, and God has another mind, three separate minds. That cannot be. He said, I cannot talk with you, and you cannot talk with me, and we cannot talk with God. If your mind and my mind were not in the same mind, we would have no way by which to communicate with each other. We would have no way by which to communicate with the divineness, which is why we'd have to go out somewhere and find a place and begin our prayer work, if you will, by talking to somebody out there somewhere and hoping that somebody out there somewhere, something out there, is going to listen to us. And with all the other human beings also pulling on God's skirt, if you will, who's going to get heard? Who's going to have the benefit of having the luxury of winning the lottery of God's attention, if you will? Whereas when we come to a realization of a unity of there's only one, that in that one, as we speak our word, as we go to God in our on our inner beingness. And truly, that's where we go. I mean, as we're doing our treatment, we can speak our word out loud, and I encourage people to do it, and I encourage people to bring a lot of passion and feeling as they do that. But oftentimes, we're not in a place where we can do that, but we can still bring that passion and feeling and be silent with our mouth, but know that we're still speaking our word. But as we speak our word, that the listeningness, if you will, the receptiveness on the divine principle side is also right here within us. We don't need someone to carry the message. We don't need a phone to call up. We don't need to hope that maybe there's someone receiving on the receiving end. We know, and we know that God exists within, around, through us, and as we speak our word, that we're speaking directly to the divine spirit, which is infinite in its infiniteness. Now, in that we talk about oneness, we talk about unity. Now we got to talk about this idea of infiniteness. In an infiniteness, we have something that we must logically recognize, that we're talking about this infinite consciousness, that what is known in any one place within the infinite is known at all places within the infinite as a spiritual presence, if you will, because God is. Again, we talked about there's no place, no space where God is not. So when I speak to God here within myself, I close my eyes and I bring my consciousness to speaking to the divine principle, that because God is everywhere, the listening post, if you will, is right there. We don't have to seek outside of ourselves. When we realize that, and we realize that as we speak our word, that there is something that we call the law, and we've talked about the law, but it's responsive. And it responds, and this is what the master teacher, what Jesus told us, this law responds to us, the divine principle. God responds to us at the level of our belief. And as I've talked about in other shows, and I'm going to talk about briefly here today, our belief is not just believing that, as I'm praying right here, right now, that what I'm speaking my word for, if you will, is going to demonstrate in my life. That's an important part, true. But our belief is a universality of our belief. And if our belief holds limitation at some level, it's kind of like God. If it holds some limitation at some level, it holds limitation at all levels. And that's why, we want to recall that if we have limiting beliefs, if we have beliefs that are not in alignment with that which is the creator, the source, and all that is, that if we have beliefs that hold us in our belief separate, then at that level, it's done unto us. And if we believe that we're separate, how can the divine principle demonstrate and manifest our belief when we think that we've brought an expectation and an intention that is whole and totally? If we hold ourselves out on some level, essentially we've held ourselves out on all levels. And I've known so many people that kind of struggle with this, not even consciously sometimes, but they're new thought individuals. They seek to learn, to embody, to put this great spiritual philosophy into practice in their life, and yet seemingly, and we talk about struggle in demonstration, struggle in manifestation, struggle in their day-to-day life experience, when they get it intellectually that God is everywhere present, that our potential good is everywhere present, available for us, and they understand when, like Dr. Holmes talks about in the textbook, and we hear in other New Thought, books, and we read in other New Thought books, that if you go out with a thimble, that even though God pours the whole universe over you and makes it available to you, all you're going to take away is a thimbleful. We get that, but that thimble is defined not just by our self image, our self, how we see ourselves. And if we say, well, I see myself as being more receptive, more open to God's good, but I still, I have those issues that I haven't let up that are limiting me. And that's the key. They are limiting us. And so we're going to take our first break, and I'll see you when we come back. We'll talk more about this.
With Organic Pastures Raw Milk, you're getting a product that has been meticulously managed from grass to glass. From our pastures to our dairy, creamery, and distribution, we work hard to produce a product that is safe and clean for you.
Got lactose intolerance or dairy allergies? Discover delicious raw milk and discover dairy the way it's supposed to be. We provide tours and would love to see you. Come visit the cows, watch the milking, the cheese being made, and learn all about raw milk. We're just 20 miles south and west of Fresno, California. Call to schedule a tour at 559-846-9732.
The Saga of Bridget and Amanda by Carol Love Forbes brings to life the struggles of historical women in early America. Find the Saga of Bridget and Amanda on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and order your copy today.
You enter this door with expired tags. Beyond is another dimension, a dimension of regulations, a dimension of long waits. You have reached the registration zone. What looks like an ordinary shop is actually Mitchell Smog, located in the heart of the Tower District, a few minutes from the DMV. Mitchell Smog offers your vehicle a STAR-certified smog inspection. So remember Mitchell Smog when you need to pass through the registration zone.
Christy Majors is your local real estate connection. With a solid, hard-working team, traditional listings, short sales, probate listings, and foreclosures are treated in a personal and caring way and closed in a timely fashion. Since 2009, Team Majors has closed more than $75 million worth of homes all over California. Reliable and trustworthy, Christy and her team will go the extra mile for every client, whether selling or buying a home. So give Team Majors a call at 559-464-5606 or visit teammajors.com.
After a tough day at the track, cleaning up can be a time-consuming task. That's why we use Extreme Cleaner, the non-toxic, biodegradable, multi-purpose cleaner and degreaser. Extreme Cleaner cuts through even the toughest of grease and grime. Fast. Great for cleaning tools and work surfaces. Extreme Cleaner. Tough on grime, safe on the environment. Visit extremecleaner.com to find a retailer near you.
When you experience flooding in your home, you need to call Clean Master Emergency Flood Service at 559-213-9430. After soaking in water for only 45 minutes, carpet starts to come apart. Clean Master Emergency Flood Service can help, and not just with carpet repair. They also offer carpet cleaning, upholstery cleaning, carpet installation, and more. Call Clean Master Emergency Flood Service, and they'll be there in 60 minutes. Call 559-213-9430.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling. So before we went to the break, we were talking about this concept of unity, of oneness with the divine spirit that we call God, that as we come to a recognition of the truth of that within ourselves, the realization that we are God expressed as us, because it can't be any other way. When we get to that point, then we look back, we reflect upon the teachings from the master teacher, and as he so succinctly put it when he said that it's done unto us as we believe, and he also said that it was his Father's good pleasure to give us, and when we pray believing, and he delineated these things, and he didn't do so in a limiting way. What he was doing was he was teaching those of him, his followers, and us all this time later on, the idea, the concept that we have access, if you will. We have the ability to interact with divine principle, to interact with who and what he called the Father, that we weren't separate, we weren't out on a raft in the middle of an ocean of nothingness, but we were immersed in, submerged in, and expressing this greater truth. And it's our journey, if you will, to come to that realization. It's a journey that for some people can happen relatively quickly, and for other people it's a journey that takes an extended period of time. But ultimately, it's a journey that we all come to, because within each and every one of us, as an expression of God, as an expression of the divine principle, there is that urge within us to express and to express life more. I love the way that Dr. Thomas Troward put it when he says we're here to express a greater livingness. And in truth, that's a great way to put it. We get caught up in all sorts of stuff in our life. You know, we have things that we want and ideas and so on and so forth. When we begin to realize that we have a purpose here, and that our purpose is extremely, intimately and extremely limited to each and every one of us, that we're here to express life, to express it at greater livingness, but we're here to express it as ourselves. The trueness of who and what we are. In other words, artists are supposed to be artists, and authors are supposed to be authors, and musicians and creators and inventors, and on and on and on. That we have individually, we have a gift for each of us that was kind of hardwired, if you will, into our spiritual DNA. And our journey, in our journey, is the discovery of that in this physical expression that we call life, and then taking that and living it at higher and higher and higher levels. You know, I've known through my life, you know, individuals that were incredible artists, but they didn't live an artist's life because they didn't have confidence in their belief or their artwork, and they didn't have an understanding that the gift that they had was meant to be expressed. It's meant to be expressed in this life, because as we express our life at greater and greater and higher degrees of livingness, if you will, that we are serving our purpose, because God has created us to do just that and has provided for each and every one of us in potential all that we could need, want, and desire in order to live our lives at that level. Our journey, again, is the discovery of the truth of who we are, our relationship with the divine principle, with God, and then utilizing that relationship and growing our ability to utilize it, and in the process growing our faith and belief in the truth of who we are, faith and belief in God, faith and belief in the law that responds as we speak our word, so that, you know, we actually live this incredible life experience. And I've said in the past that if God had hardwired us, if you will, to live all that we're supposed to be right from the get, that we don't have to learn, know, or do anything other than just plop down in here, then we're nothing more than a robot of sorts. And there is no livingness in that. There's no feedback to God itself, and there's no growth within us as individual beings. And the bottom line for all this is that we continue to grow. You know, we grow in this life, and we grow beyond this life, and we grow beyond that. And each part of our experience, if you will, is an expression of growth. And growth, and one of the things I'm going to pause here to talk about just for a minute, is the idea of growth is an idea of achieving, and achieving oftentimes comes with overcoming or with struggle. Now, we can look at struggle as being suffering, or we can look at struggle as being strengthening. And how we look at it is simply our choice. And choice is one of those tools that God has given us to use in our life. And as we begin to choose proactively for ourselves, we tend to make choices that are not self-destructive. And if we choose to see life as suffering, then we will suffer. You know, and I've talked about this. This is one of the things that the Buddha hit on, you know, a few years back, when he realized and he said that all life is suffering. And as he looked out into life and as he had traveled his world at that time, that's what he believed that he saw. But he contemplated on it, and as he contemplated on it, he realized that life did not have to be suffering. And so he came up with his Four Noble Truths. And his Four Noble Truths were to open the follower up to the Eightfold Path. And the Eightfold Path opened the follower up to living or creating a life that is not a life of suffering. But the first noble truth is all life is suffering. The second noble truth is we suffer because we have physical desires. The third noble truth is we don't have to suffer. The fourth noble truth is that we can learn the Eightfold Path and not do that. It's a great idea, and it was a great teaching. And it's still, for some people, it's still a very powerful and positive teaching today. But to realize that we can choose to see life as struggle, or we can choose to see life as suffering. Now, let's take suffering off the table for right now, and let's talk about struggle. Struggle is not a bad thing. We had to struggle when we learned to walk. In a sense, we struggled when we learned to speak the language that we speak. For each of us in our life, as we learned various things, we struggled with that learning process. Sometimes we struggled intellectually, sometimes we may have struggled emotionally, sometimes we struggled physically. You know, a great musician didn't just pick up their instrument and be a great musician. They had to struggle, if you will. They had to persevere. They had to strive. They had to grow their muscle memory. They had to grow their intellectual connectedness to what it is they were doing. They had to, if they were a musician, they had to grow their emotionalism to connect to the music that they were dealing with. There are all these different things, and yet for every one of those things, we all have within us the capability of doing and achieving those things. But for someone that music becomes a passion, they are, if you will, kind of connected up even more. And this is how we experience and express life. Failure to define what it is that is truly your passion oftentimes is what leads to a life of suffering. Discovering what your passion is in your life and following your passion, if you will, is the foundation for creating a life experience that is phenomenal in so many ways. But again, it's individual to each and every one of us, how we define that. One person's passion is another person's doldrums. You know, you look and you say, well, who wants to do that? They do, and they enjoy doing it. And in their joy of doing it, they're bringing more light into the world. As we enjoy doing, as we create and we achieve, we not only bring goodness, happiness, and joy within our own life at some level, but we also bring it to the world around us. And we create a greater world, a greater experience. Our only concept, only our concepts limit us. And this is be found on page 197. And Holmes writes, realizing that conscious thought operates through a power that is infinite, we see that there can be no limit to the power to heal other than the limit of our ability to conceive that power is healing. And when we talk about healing here, we can talk about psychological healing, emotional healing, physical healing, or we can talk about healing our life. In other words, if our life experience, if our life expression is anything less than what it should be, given the great gifts that we have within us, if we fail to bring them out in some way, we have limited ourselves, and in that limiting, you could say we're diseased. We're not at ease. We're not experiencing and expressing life at the abundance, at the level that we could and should. And that's not, when I say could and should, I don't want people to think that, well, if you're not, that there's something wrong with you. If you're not at this point in time, all it means is you've come up to the starting line. And from this point on, with that recognition, you can fire your own starting gun and come out of the proverbial gates, if you will, and begin your journey. And there's no point in time in your life that is not available to you. What was it? Grandma Moses was like 85 years old when she began painting, and there's so many other people. And in today's world, where the age that we live to is so much beyond what used to be the normal age of individuals, that maybe you had a life profession, you retired at somewhere between 55 and 65. And like so many people today, you're looking around in retirement and you're going, well, is this all there is? No, there's not. This is not all there is. But it's up to you to take the first step. It's up to you to begin to define what it is for you. And to do that, you have to make a decision. And at this point, we're going to make a decision to take our next break, and we'll talk about decisions and what happens when we come back. Hi, I'm the host of New Thought Talk, Reverend Steve Walling. And I want to take a moment today and give you an opportunity to support our ministry, support our show. You can do that through a PayPal payment. You send the payment through PayPal to the email address of Madera, MADERASAC @gmail.com. If you don't have a PayPal account, you can go down below the link and you can find where you can enter a debit or credit card. I want to thank those that have supported us and those that will continue to support us. You have a great day. Bye.
Get your copy of Crouching Mama Hidden Veggies today, packed with recipes of delicious food cooked with hidden vegetables, so you can feel confident that you and your family are eating your veggies.
Contact Sprague Electric for all things electrical, solar installations, battery systems, troubleshooting, repairs, and more. Call 559-760-0712. SpragueElectric.com.
Are you or a member of your family beginning to show early signs of forgetfulness that may be Alzheimer's or dementia? The only way to be sure is through an expensive brain scan. Dr. Parminder Bhatia of the Neuropain Medical Center is helping in a clinical trial for those with memory problems, dementia, or mild Alzheimer's disease. Those accepted into the trial will have all costs paid for, from diagnosis to evaluations and trial medicine. There is no cost for those who are accepted in the trial, and there may even be some compensation for the patient's time and travel. For more information, call 559-437-9700, extension 310, and visit neuropain.com.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling. So, we talked about oneness, and we talked about our relationship to that oneness, that unity. And we talked about creating a life that we were all gifted with, each and every one of us with an urge, if you will, to live life and to have life at a greater level of livingness. And this, in truth, is the gift that God has given to each and every one of us. There's nobody that is separate or left out. Unfortunately, there are individuals that are born into relationships or parts of the world where they have not had the opportunity to be exposed to this. But even in those places and those conditions, there are still individuals that we can point to that have somehow, some way allowed that urge within themselves to express itself, and they have lifted themselves up and out of whatever limitations, whatever conditions they were in, and they have transcended that. And those are not exceptions. Those are examples for each and every one of us to recognize, to follow, to teach, and to share. And as we do that, as we lift ourselves up and we teach and we share others in however that that is through demonstration or through just being an example or maybe having conversations, whatever it is. We create a better world, a more productive world, a happier, more harmonious world, not for just ourselves, but for all of humanity. And that's ultimately the journey that humanity is destined to make, I believe. And I want to go on here. He says, God is forever doing new things. This is to be found in Principles for Successful Living on page 273. Holmes writes, God is forever doing new things, and when we conceive of new ideas, it is an act of the divine projecting itself into creation. There were no flying machines until man made them. The Spirit did not have a lot of little flying machine models put away in a cosmic cupboard somewhere, but the mind that conceived the possibility of the flying machine is the mind, it is God, is the divine, expressing as that mind. The mind we use is the mind of the universe. It's done unto you as you believe. Can you begin to kind of get an idea, an understanding, what that means for you? The mind that we use individually is the mind of the universe. It's God expressing through us as our individualized personality. And sometimes getting to that point can be a little difficult. So I'm going to skip over a lot of stuff. Now I'm going to talk about something called receptivity. Receptivity is kind of an interesting thing. When Jesus said, it's done unto you as you believe, he's also saying, it's done unto you as you believe you will receive. When he says that the kingdom of heaven is to be found within, he's saying the kingdom of heaven is to be found within if you're receptive to the idea. Now, in both cases, it doesn't mean that you are apart from or limited by, but you are limited by your own beliefs. You are limited by those things that you allow to limit yourself. That's why when Dr. Holmes came up with the idea of calling the divine principles the thing itself, in a sense, he was creating a statement for freedom from limiting beliefs that people have held that they weren't even aware that they hold. And once you begin to break yourself away from limiting beliefs, you open yourself up for more possibilities, which I almost forgot, but I wanted to read this. This is from Christian D. Larson, and he says, this is our purpose, to live the purest, the largest, the fairest, the most useful, and most beautiful, and most spiritual life possible, just for today. He says we are to strive to be the best that we can be today at this moment. Our goal is not to compete against anyone else, but to be the shining soul that we were created to be. When you begin to live the life that you were created to live, you have no competitors. There is no one out there that has what you have. It was given to you individually by an infinite God that gives infinitely to everyone at the level that we believe and understand, and we open up in our belief and understanding a receptivity within ourselves. And receptivity is where a lot of us fall short because we're not worthy. We don't believe. That can't be. And the list goes on and on and on. Oftentimes there's individuals that will begin to get an introduction to new thought, whether it be through the unity family or through religious science family or divine science family. Well, it doesn't make any difference. But they begin to become aware. They begin to when you begin to realize the power of learning the truth about yourself, learning the truth about creation, and applying that truth into your day-to-day life experience, that can be a very uplifting experience, but it's one that oftentimes comes to a screeching halt, if you will, because we get to a point and then old beliefs, limiting beliefs, tell us, well, it can't be, tell us many different things that may hold us back. Or we look out into the world and we see so much chaos and so much hatred or so much anger or so much disruption, whatever it is, and we begin to believe that that's what life is supposed to be. And life's not supposed to be that. Yes, life comes at us at the speed of life. That's true. But when we align ourselves with God, with the divine principle, no matter what life brings at us, we are always prepared in some way to transcend that, in some way to find the good in it. Because let's face it, not everything that life brings is necessarily easy. But again, it's that concept in mind. Do we choose to suffer, or do we choose to see the struggle and to overcome it, to transcend it? And as we do that, we grow, we get stronger. And that's always a choice that we have. We weren't created to suffer. We are not meant to be victims, if you will. We're meant to be outrageous living beings, living a life of more livingness, expressing life at an ever higher degree, higher level, more abundance, more good. And in doing that, we not only lift ourselves up, but we lift those up around us. That's our true calling, if you will. That's our purpose for being here. But in order to do that, we have to understand that we have a responsibility, if you will, to learn to be receptive to God's good. Just because someone tells you that God's good is available to you doesn't necessarily make you available to it. And therein lies the issue. And this is from Thomas Trord, and the book is the Edinburgh Lectures. And this is chapter 7 on receptivity. Judge Trord writes, in order to lay the foundations for practical work, and this is what we're talking about, spiritual work, what he referred to as scientific work back in his day. But he says practical work, the student must endeavor to get a clear conception of what is meant by the intelligence of undifferentiated spirit, universal intelligence, infinite God. And we want to grasp the idea of intelligence apart from individuality, okay? An idea which is rather apt to elude us until we grow accustomed to it. And it is the failure to realize that this quality of spirit has given rise to all the theological errors that have brought bitterness into the world. Okay, we got that. He says here, I want to get down here. The idea of realizing personality without selfhood, which differentiates the individual selfhood, the idea of realizing personality without that selfhood which differentiates one individual from another. I am not that other because I am myself. This is the definition of individual selfhood. When we realize that there's an individual selfhood, but there's a universal selfhood also, okay, and it's important to get this understanding. As long as I look out and I see myself and the other, whatever the other is, I have defined myself as separate from. As we grow spiritually, as we put this philosophy into practice as a daily interaction with life, then we begin to grasp the idea, and one of the things that we teach in New Thought is the idea of practicing the presence of God. That's a nice, concise statement, but there's a whole lot behind that, and part of practicing the presence of God is realizing the divine in all beings and all individuals, including the ones that, maybe we don't think so much of, or maybe we see them as the other, maybe we see them as the enemy or whatever. We have to realize within ourselves that we're all expressions of God, and that God is not a multi-celled thing like a honeybee honeycomb type of thing, but God is a vast universality of allness in which we all live, move, and have our being, if you will. But as we recognize that as ourself and that in which we are expressing ourselves, as we recognize that in the other, whoever the other is, we begin to realize that we're all part of this great unity, this great oneness, this infinite unity, if you will. Then we have to realize that as we open ourselves up to receiving good, so is all of God opening itself up to receiving good. Now the catch is, and this is a typical human reaction, if I see someone else receiving good and I don't particularly care for that person or who they are or where they're at or what they're doing, okay, then I begin to form judgments. And we were told right from the get, judge not, lest ye be judged. By what measure you judge, so shall you also be judged. In other words, See them, love them for the good they have. Maybe it's not your definition of what you'd like to see, but that's okay. Because within God, all things will out, if you will. If you believe, if you open yourself up, if you're willing to receive the good that is yours in the here and now. And that's a big hurdle sometimes for people, is receiving their good, opening up to receive their good. See, it's time for our last break, so I'll pick this up in our last segment, the idea of what holds us back from receiving our good in our own being. See you when we come back.
In a world where Friday nights have become synonymous with going out to get wasted, consider not doing that, and instead save your money and tune in to the Hey Slingshot Show Friday nights at 7 p.m. Or go out anyway and pull out your phone and watch on Facebook or YouTube. You can even watch right now. It won't be live, but there is a significant backlog of shows that you can watch right now. Hey Slingshot, Friday nights at 7 on CentralValleyTalk.com.
Hey, I'm Chris DeVold. Tune in every Friday night on CentralValleyTalk.com when I bring you Sex, Drugs, Chris DeVold, where I'll give you 3 guesses on what we talk about. And I also vow to bring you 1 live local music act a week. So tune in every week because you never know what kind of music you're going to hear right here on CentralValleyTalk.com.
Hello everyone, my name is Miss G. I offer fun and affordable promotion and advertisement on my talk show. It is called Fresno Vibes. We talk, we play awesome music. I also feature a bunch of different bartenders from different places. I like to have restaurants. I like to have any event, any kind of fun stuff. Contact me at rmgmissg@gmail.com and we will have so much fun and we will promote your business, promote your event right here on my show. So contact me. We'll have fun. Thank you.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. Okay, we're talking about this idea of receptivity. I'm going to go back into the textbook on page 273, the textbook being The Science of Mind by Dr. Ernest Holmes. On page 273, in Principles of Successful Living, Dr. Holmes writes, he says, therefore, the person who believes that God is specializing for him or her is right. Okay? If you believe that God is specializing for you, if you believe that, you're correct. He goes on to say, God is specializing for each individual through the law. Such a person will realize that when they say there is a divine intelligence that knows the right answer and accepts that statement as being true. Okay? And that's what we got to do. The answer to that problem is right and then and there created in the divine mind. Imagine when you make the declaration with a knowingness that the answer is there, that God knows. If you make that with an understanding with God, all things are possible, okay? You make that statement, okay? That there is a divine intelligence that knows the right answer and accepts this statement as being true. The answer to that problem is right then and there, created in mind, and will be projected through his intellect or her intellect whenever and wherever it is they are ready to receive it. It is a new creation. It happens. It happens from the divine when we, if you will, state our case in truth, in belief, knowingness, okay? It says God is forever doing new things, and when we conceive new ideas, it is an act of the divine projecting itself into creation. In other words, the person that, I'll use the airplane example, when the individuals sought to invent the airplane, it wasn't something that existed before. They had to create whatever it is, the engineering, the design, the concepts, if you will, that it would allow lift to happen with wings and then the idea of propelling it forward for this lift to work. And it came into being. And it came into being because some people believed that it could be, and they followed their beliefs, and they refused to accept anything other than what they had an intention and an expectation to see. That's on a bigger level. Now, we see it played out in the world today with all the technology and all the things going on in the world today, but we also see it playing out in our individual lives when we stop and recognize that it's playing out. How often have we had something serendipitously just kind of show up or to express itself, and yet that was just the right thing for the right time that we wanted, and somehow we knew it was going to show up even though we had no idea how that was going to be. And that's very simplistic, but it happens. Can you imagine, if you will, living a life where you felt fulfilled? Imagine, if you will, living a life where you felt prospered, where you felt abundant, where you felt like you are expressing at a higher level than ever before. And now imagine, if you will, that that's not really something that is beyond your ability to experience in life, but that really is the truth of who you are and the truth of what you're here to do and to be and to express. It's done unto you as you believe. What are you willing to believe and to allow yourself to believe? What are you willing to believe about the divine principle we call God? Okay? Are you willing to believe that God is everywhere present? Are you willing to believe that God has gifted you because you are an expression of God itself? Are you willing to believe that with God all things are possible? Are these things that you're willing to do? As you begin to put new thought, religious science, science of mind and spirit, these spiritual practices, these tools into practice daily in your own life, when you're willing to make that decision, make that choice that today, regardless of what the past has brought, that I am no longer a prisoner to old beliefs. To take your story that has held you in bondage, if you will, and look at it kind of like as a history book, but it's a history book that doesn't have to be a prophecy of where we're going next. Close that book up, put it on the shelf of your mind, and open yourself up to a whole new universe of thought, a whole new universality of ideas, of time and space and experience and expression. And you're willing to look out to the world in new eyes of possibility, eyes of potential. And I know that for some people sometimes, depending on where you're at in life, you look out and you say, I can't. It's more than I can do. And I'm here to tell you that you can do it. You may do it a little bit at a time, but the bottom line below all of it is faith, and you can grow your faith, and you can take time, and you can make time, and when you do that with intention, time will unfold. When you give up limiting beliefs, when you give up beliefs that are fear-based, basically. The fear mechanism within our mind is highly developed, and there was a time in our evolution before humanity got to a level of consciousness where fear really was the controlling force in our day-to-day life experience. But that's a long time ago, and yet we still allow, and it's very easy to allow, fear to rule the day for us. Ernest Holmes said that fear is an absolute faith in that which you don't want to have happening. Think about it. But faith, positive faith, is an absolute belief in that what you want to have happen. And one is just as powerful in your life experience and life expression as the other. What do you want to choose? And if you start this journey, you begin to move forward. If you find that, you stumble, you have some setbacks, don't give up. Regroup. Treat for yourself, pray for yourself, recognize a greater truth. Know that you have on your team the most powerful thing in the universe. It's infinite in its power, it's infinite in its knowledge, and it's infinite in its ability to express through you at the level that you open up within yourself for it to express. And that's why I say, with God, all things are possible. In your life, all things are truly possible at the level that you believe it. I mean, you like I say, Grandma Moses was 85, and she's only one. There's all sorts of people that in their second, third, or even fourth careers have created unimaginable things that have brought them prosperity. And when I talk about prosperity, prosperity is not just financial, although that's one aspect of it, but prosperity is prosperity of goodness. Prosperity is a prosperity of harmony. Prosperity is a prosperity of health and peace. And these are all available to us. We may have to open ourselves up. We may have to rearrange how we address the world, but it's available to each and every one of us. That's what religious science and science of mind and spirit has been about. That's what it's taught. That's why I find it so wonderful to teach it and so incredibly wonderful to see it expressed in people's life. Opening themselves up, letting go of limiting beliefs. And that's one of the reasons why I like to do this show. I like sharing these ideas and concepts. And of course, I'm always open to hearing from you, either through email or, the various, it's social media. The various ways we can connect nowadays are innumerable. And people that we see at Sunday at the Spiritual Awareness Center. This is awesome stuff. It unfolds in an awesome way in people's life. And it's good to see it. I've enjoyed doing these shows. We've got shows now. You can go to YouTube. We got like 170 shows, give or take a few, up there on YouTube. And Michael's probably got the YouTube channel down there in the banner below that you can go to. You can go to our New Thought Talk Facebook page if you've never been there, depending on how you found us. We can be found at the Spiritual Awareness Facebook page, my personal Facebook page, Steve Walling. I'm sure there's other outlets out there that you can find us. Take some time. Go back. If you got questions, go back and look at some of the videos. And if there's something that you want to find out, send me an email or a text or something. And who knows? It might even be something that there's enough interest in that we can make it a subject for one of our videos. It's all available to us out there. I enjoy interacting with people. I have a passion for teaching, I guess. That's where I found my life experience to be. And so it's out there. It's out there for you. Bottom line, though, it can all be out there. God can pour an infinite amount over your head of good each and every day. Everything you need, want, and desire. But if you, as Dr. Holmes said, if you only take a thimble, you're only going to collect a thimble's worth. Some of us just take a piece of paper and we don't collect anything. Some of us don't even go outside. Where do you sit in that? Ask yourself the question. What are you willing to conceive for yourself today? What are you willing to do to create a greater, more positive, abundant life experience for you? Think about it. And I'll see you when we come back next week. Know that as you go through the week, the light of God surrounds you, the love of God enfolds you, the power of God protects you, and the presence of God watches over you. Wherever you are, God is there. All is well. See you when we come back.